Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Coach Red, where we bring you all the news, stories, takes, and opinions about your favorite teams from the Pacific North. Fresh from the good to the bad to the Mariners.
The sweetest of sweet Mariners, baby. Had a great day today.
They did. There's been one gentleman in particular that's had a great couple of days.
Yeah. Oh,
Dylan
don't even get
Moore
me.
loves hitting in
Oh,
Cincinnati, loves it. But talked about the Mariners on Monday. It's not time to talk about the Mariners today. It is our full Seahawks mock draft spectacular special. We are just
sir.
over 1 week away from the draft. So, did one mock draft just for the Seahawks. No trades, nothing. Play it as it lies, as they would say. And Happy Gilmore. What a classic! What a classic film. And if you're looking to know about the Seahawks draft, well, we got to tell you about us first. And if we're going to go with Happy Gilmore, I mean, it's kind of like me, just rags to riches story. Might get a Subway deal out of the whole thing. I don't know. We might get sponsored by Subway. If we do,
Sure.
it might be because of me, your boy Coach Red. You can find me on X at the real Coach Red, on Instagram at the real underscore Coach Red, TikTok at the real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, and leave a comment or two. And potentially in the future, eat fresh. We'll see.
We
And
are
if
not
you're looking
sponsored by
for a
Subway.
guy that is synonymous with Happy Gilmore, see, first think you were going to think Chubbs, wrong. Shooter McGavin, wrong.
Wrong.
You're the boss that got the nail in the foot
Sure, dude, I'll take it.
because when you get pissed, you're just gonna run after people and chase them down and tell
Sure.
them what you think. Isn't that right, Cain?
I guess if that's how you're describing me. But yes, I'm Kane. You can find me over on Twitter, Kane2406, TikTok and Twitch, Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Pause, pause, pause. Do it, freaking do it.
And you see you running after someone. I believe that jacket belongs to Coach Red. Oh man. But so one of my favorite times of the year. Bounced around a couple of different sites to put together mock draft. Some I thought were realistic, others not. And Kane will say the pick, who the player is. I'll give you the breakdown. I'll even talk about why I may or may not have gone in a different direction if trades were involved, right? And that's going to be extremely evident with the first pick. Kane, pick 18, who we got?
Ted McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona.
Ted is a big play guy. His route trees, not the greatest right now. He doesn't have top notch speed, but he's a great high point catcher. He has a flair for the dramatic. Does it sound a lot like a guy that was formerly on this team?
It sounds exactly like a guy who was just on this team and traded away.
So, although I like the intrigue of MVS, I also think that JSN will continue to grow into his role and move forward. But we've got to be realistic here. Cooper Cup, as much as we love him, he's been banged up a little bit. So having another competent wide receiver on this team outside of the additions of MVS and Cooper Cup, I think getting a young guy to complement this squad. And the reason I like Tet in this spot, he was available. And I think that
And
he is one of the top wide receivers in this draft, not named
he's
Travis Hunter, right?
yeah, in every ranking, he's the second best wide receiver in the class. Him or Matthew Golden. Um, I don't
And I
know about
like
the
him
I
for
don't know
his
about the
body
other one,
style, his
but
physique. I know
sure.
And you had said that you wanted Gray Zabel in this
Yes.
spot.
I
But
just I just want them to have just more O line options. It's just that's my whole shtick.
I think Gray Zabel would be a phenomenal fit for this team. I don't
Sure,
think that I think it's a pretty big reach at 18. If you can
sure.
get down to 25, 22, somewhere in there, move back a couple, get a little bit more assets, Gray Zabel all day. But with the way that this board fell, I can't pass up one of the best playmakers in this draft.
Sure, sure.
Can't do it. And it fills a short term need and a long term need all rolled up in one.
I mean, I have three kind of criteria for the first round pick coming into this, and if I could share my little 2 cents real quick.
Sure.
So like I was saying at work the other day, it's like if Tyler Ward somehow falls to you, you take him. You do
Mhm.
not let him go. But
That's a that's
I
that's a great strategy on drafting. Pick
yeah,
one player and hope he falls. Come on, dude.
I know,
What's your
but it's just
criteria?
that's just like I have players that I just have thought like, but I know that Tyler Warren's not going to get past Indianapolis. They're in desperate need of tight end play. Nicky Mawari is so interesting to me. I don't know if at 18 is the right place to take him, but he's so interesting. And then Grace Abel has been my those are my three that I kind of want. Or if Colston Loveland is as good as everybody says he is, pairing him back up with AJ Barner.
The what I look at when I'm looking at let me put my GM hat on real quick.
Sure.
When I'm looking at someone that I'm going to draft in the first round,
Mm-hmm.
where the Seahawks are at, they're back to back years missing out on the playoffs. I wouldn't say that they're necessarily rebuilding. They're a fringe playoff team. Well, a lot of changes made. Yes, they were. But what I look for in early round picks is guys that can make an impact right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
You get that opportunity here with some of your other guys. Gray Zabel, he's going to go into a position battle.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you really have that with Ted McLaurin. Nick Maury, I think he's a stud. I
Yeah,
don't think he's going to play right away. You're not going to draft and stash in the first round.
that's fair. That's
Um,
fair.
that's why I'm looking at, I think Gray Zabel a little bit later. I think Gray Zabel would start on this team, but
Oh,
I'm looking
100%.
for hard impacts, right? Big impact.
Sure,
I
sure.
addressed the offensive line throughout this draft. You've seen how I put
Yes,
this thing together, and I can
yes.
I can twist this fable into a way that everyone's going to love it. But especially with some other areas where the wide receiver class is good
Good, good,
overall,
yes.
but there are very few great guys coming in this draft, and you get one of those guys. Tight
Mm-hmm.
end, deep draft class. Guard, deep draft class.
Yeah.
Interior offensive line, edge play, deep draft class. Your secondary, pretty solid draft class. There's a
Mm-hmm.
few areas that quarterback that are not the deepest, right?
Yeah.
You look at linebacker, there's kind of front heavy and it's kind of wide open. Your
Mm-hmm.
cornerback play, straight corners, you got some very high end talent. You got a lot of guys that are going to play in this league, but you don't have that dearth of talent like you've seen sometimes where you're getting,
Sure,
you know, Breek Woolen in the fifth.
sure. Right.
So I'm looking for instant impact. How can we upgrade this team? You look at a defensive minded head coach and you think I'd want to lean defense, but the defense is coming together. You didn't lose a lot in the off season. I
Mm-hmm.
will address and put some pieces that can help take this to the next level throughout the rest of this draft. Go ahead and give me a guy that has done big things at a non football school, traditionally at
Prior,
Arizona. Like the
prior,
guy's
prior,
done
prior
big
Jet
things.
Fish. Prior Jet Fish.
Yeah. And he finally comes to Seattle because we thought he was going to come with Jed Fish. So we get him to Seattle either way.
Sure.
All right, Cain. Next pick. What number are we at, and who are we taking?
We're at pick number 50. We're taking Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle out of Michigan.
D tackle is a deep class. To have him available in this spot, this is a guy that we've mocked in the first round pretty consistently throughout this whole process. If he's available there, you put him in the middle. That allows you to play Leonard Williams a little bit more outside and in a more true pass rushing role where
And,
he excels. The other
and
thing,
Byron Murphy pushes him outside.
well, the other thing is you have Murphy and Grant who are different but the same, right? They have
Mhm.
multiple components to their game. They are stout against the run, but they also have good flashes and upside to get after the quarterback. Pairing those two next to each other, that is just, you know, crazy. It's like when you had Deron Payne and Allen with Washington, right?
Yep.
Just two forces in the middle of that defense. And I think as a whole, we could say I don't think that the interior defensive line played up to its potential last year.
No.
Yes, you had rookie Byron Murphy, Jonathan Hankins was okay. You did get some good stuff from Reed. You did get some good stuff from Big Cat, but it kind of up and down a little bit there for a while. Going into year two of Brian Murphy, I think is going to be huge. And he got banged up at the beginning of the year. Missing that early time in the offseason for your first NFL camp is tough. You saw what happened with JSN missing time at the beginning of camp. He didn't flourish until year two, right? So having that dearth of talent on the interior that you have right now and adding another guy that is first round potential, sign me up all day.
Sure. Sure.
I
Don't die
had,
on
I
us
had a
here,
tickle
coach.
on me. Still do.
All right. Let's jump to two picks later at pick 52. We're taking Jonah Savai Denea, offensive guard from Arizona.
Play tackle for Arizona, and this is a big human being. He's got athleticism to play tackle. If you wanted to move, say, oh my God, Abe Lucas inside to limit his mobility, if you will. But I think this is a perfect spot to slide in to your left guard spot. Let that right guard spot go down to a battle between Christian Haynes, the mountain of a man, and Anthony Bradford. Right, it gives you options along that offensive line. I wanted to address the offensive line early. This is a guy who early on was kind of seen as potentially a true tackle fit, but as the process has gone along, it seemed like he's going to be more of a fit at guard. Go ahead and give me that on this team. A versatile guy, huge, and has had good success at Arizona as well. Like this kid's a
Right.
stud.
And it also adds to, another player that John Benton can possibly elevate as, it's said he's done. The stats are there. So, sure. All right. Pick 82. Going down to Texas for this one. Gunnar Helm. That's such a Texas name.
He's
That is
from
such a
he's from
sure.
Colorado originally.
Like the tight end out of Texas. That is a fitting name.
Gunnar Helm was a pretty darn good pass catcher in college football this year. Will he need to add some size to block at the NFL level? Sure. But especially if you're going to run a lot of two tight end sets, I'm going to want another good pass catcher in my tight end room. 60 catches last year for Texas, over 700 yards and 7 TDs. He set Texas's single season record for most catches by a tight end this year. He was, I think, second team All SEC. He was an honorable mention in the Big 12 the year before. This guy, soft hands, big frame, and a friendly target for quarterbacks. And when you you like what you saw out of AJ Barner. You know that they're going to run multiple sets. You know what you can get out of Fant, a pretty decent blocker. But AJ Barner is a pretty good blocker as well. They can both catch the ball. With this signing, I think it opens up more versatility in the future to maybe get away from some of that money you owe Fant next year. So this is a look that if I'm going to be running more two tight end sets, I want to have more assets at that position. But it kind of gives me that versatility down the road to get younger in an area where you've seen tight ends excel coming right out of college. And it's not always been the first round guys. You've had Sam Laporta, you had Brock Bowers, you had Michael Mayer that had a pretty solid first year, Croft or Kraft for Green Bay. all
Aircraft.
all of these guys are producing on their rookie deals, which you typically didn't see out of tight ends out of maybe the first or second one drafted. Sam Laporta bucks that trend a little bit, right? Being a third round pick. Go ahead and get me another third round pick who I think can give you AJ Barner type numbers in year one.
All right. Same round. Pick 92. 10 picks later, they're going to take Jack Sawyer, edge at Ohio State.
Thank you. This pick right here is for Geno Smith. This is the Geno Smith pick. And I think Jack Sawyer is going to be a stud. He reminds me a lot of Sam Hubbard, who was a high producer in college. The testing metrics weren't there, but has had a pretty solid NFL career so far. Jack Sawyer is a beast, dude. And for him to be available at the end of the third round, to insert him into that edge group, Boye Mafe is a beast, right? We know that. Chen Unowosu, when healthy, can do multiple things for you. Derek Hall is bendy. This guy's just gonna just square you up and punch you in the mouth, and he's got a little wiggle to him. He
You sound like
reminds me a
Dickin.
lot of Boye Mafe, but probably more polished coming out of college. He's his pass rushing skills are more defined currently than when Boye Mafe was drafted in the second round. Boye Mafe has developed and turned into something special. I think that you could get 4 or 5 sacks out of Jack Sawyer on this defense next year. And it gives you, like I said, depth. You have Uchenna Nwosu, who's been banged up. At one point last year, Mafe was out, Nwosu was out. Hall was trying to get right. This is early in the season. Getting another guy who's had success coming off a national title, one of the heartbeats of that defense. Go and get me that type of guy on this team
Fit
all
right
day,
in.
all
Fit
day.
right in. All right. I believe this is the fourth round. Yeah. This next pick's not till the sixth. Yeah. All right. Fourth round, 137. They're going to select Jalen Reed, safety out of Penn State.
Where I was looking at with Jalen Reed, he kind of fell into my lap at this point. I wanted to go and get a safety, but I don't think it's the biggest hole. Yes, you have Kobe Bryant, who's going into the last year of his rookie deal. He did some good things for you. But what I like about Jalen Reed is I think that he could play a similar role to Julian Love. He's probably a more in the box type guy. His instincts are great. His athleticism is great. He overcommits sometimes. But what I do think this can lead you to is if Kobe Bryant is walks in free agency, that can move Julian Love. I think as he gets older and progresses, he's not going to be able to play in the box as often. This gives me that box safety. So if needed, next year you've got Julian Love just playing over the top, and now you've got Jalen Reed sitting there being that thumper with high IQ. It reminds me a little bit of Kobe Bryant when you talk about IQ and instincts, because you see
Mm-hmm.
that Kobe Bryant is not the most physically gifted corner safety defensive back out there, right? He was in the same draft class, went to the same school as Sauce, who was absolutely bonkers in college, but Kobe Bryant won the award for best DB in college that year. So I think with Jalen Reed, he gives you good depth. This is a guy that can play special teams for you when you're looking at this round. You're looking for guys who can be depth and come into a starting spot if needed. I think this just fell into the lap of what the Seahawks want to do. And when you really look at a Mike McDonald defense, the safeties play a big role. And if needed, you can run three safeties at the later end of this season if you needed to, if you pick up Jalen Reed.
Yeah. All right. Now to the sixth round, pick 172, Jabbar Muhammad, cornerback out of Oregon.
I'm gonna
Familiar name.
say cornerback out of Oklahoma State or Washington, um, because those were the other stops he had before Oregon. And I'm taking a little bit of a flyer on this one. Jabbar Muhammad did not have the best year for the Ducks last year, but Jabbar Muhammad had a phenomenal year the previous year for the Washington Huskies. With his frame, he profiles more as a slot corner in the NFL. Yes, you've got, what's it, Josh Jobe, you have Spoon, and you have Reek. Reek's going into the last year of his deal. And with what corners are being paid, I think that money would be allocated more towards Spoon than Reek. So
Yes.
with this pick, Jabbar Muhammad has traditionally played outside in college, and he has done well, right? So it gives you the opportunity to potentially move Spoon more outside more consistently, can allow these two to switch if needed. It's a developmental pick, and it's one of those ones where I'm going to take a flyer because at his highest level, when the Huskies went to the national title game, his side was locked down, man, all
Yep.
year, all
Yep.
year. And to get a player with that type of potential in the sixth,
Yeah.
sign me
Sign me
up.
up. Sure. All right. Three picks later, they're going to select Holland Pierce, tackle out of Rutgers.
Didn't know a lot about Holland Pierce, but I did want to add a little bit more to this offensive line. I don't think that they are going to address center. I think that you saw enough out of Olawatimi
Yeah.
to feel confident. And even with your new offensive coordinator and offensive line coach, Jalen Sundell is a very good athlete at the center position as well. So I do think that they feel comfortable with both of those two being on roster. With Holland Pierce, another big guy, played tackle for Rutgers, but he's not the most polished in pass blocking. Speed rush can get him. So, what this leads me to believe is if the Seahawks get to a point where they're going to try to be, a 60% run team potentially, having another big body guy that can great in the run game could be beneficial. Also, it's another guy that could see himself due to the limited athleticism bumping inside to guard as well and giving you another option in that battle. Taking a late flyer, we liked Mike Jarrell last year in the build up to the draft. He gets drafted, he gets some play time. It's a great story. This kind of gives me that and the mountain, as I like to call him, right? Those two were late round draft picks who got starts for the Seahawks. This is a guy who I think fits that similar role where they're not ready to start right off the get go, but he has an interesting body type, an interesting technique of being a mauler, which I would love to have a few extra maulers on the offensive line.
Sure. 100%. All right. Pick 223. They're going to select Donovan Edwards, running back out of Michigan. I
Wouldn't be
like
a
it.
Seahawks draft if they didn't take a running back. And
I like it.
Donovan Edwards is a home run hitter.
Yeah, 100%.
He he had huge games in the national title. Huge game for him. The
Yeah,
dude was going crazy. But one thing why Donovan Edwards is available is because he doesn't always play up to his size. He doesn't initiate contact very well. His contact balance isn't great, but the guy can catch the ball out of their backfield. He can get downfield in a hurry. And when you look at this running back room that we have, we can all agree that we love Cain. We're very much impressed with year two of Sharbs, and what you saw out of Kenny McIntosh, you feel good about too. But
100%.
what can you say about all three of those guys? Is they've all missed time.
Yes.
Some of them are only 2 years in the league. Sharps has missed games. Kenny McIntosh has missed games. K9 in year three missed games. So going to get another guy that you could throw in the mix and be that home run type guy, I'll take a swing for the fences here in
Sure.
the seventh.
All right. Last pick of the draft, 234 for the Seahawks. Carson Bruner, linebacker out of Washington.
Carson Bruner was a legacy Husky. His dad played tight end for the Huskies, and the heart and soul of the defense. When
Yep.
you look back to their trip to the national title game and you look at the leader on defense for them this year, it was Carson Bruner. What I saw out of Carson Bruner is a guy that has a nose for the football. He doesn't miss a lot of tackles. He can rush pretty well off the edge. And I mean, he just has a nose and a knack for getting in there. His instincts are off the charts. When you look at the Seahawks, they're going to traditionally run two two linebackers that are going to actually play the linebacker position and not edge. With Carson Bruner, I think you get the best of both worlds. I think he can get a little frisky down with the edge players if he needs to for some practices, but it gives you good depth behind Tyrese Knight, who we thought exceeded everyone's expectations last year, and you have Ernest Jones. You have two starters that are locked, cocked, and ready to rock. So go ahead and get me a guy. This guy was in college for a while, but he's always played at a very high level. And the quit, it's not there. I've seen this guy play banged up. I believe it was later in this year the Seahawks needed to try and get bowl eligible, and he's sitting there where I don't think he could move one of his arms, and he got a one-handed pick in that game. It the heart and determination, and I know I've watched a lot of Carson Bruner, right? So we'll typically lean on some of those guys that we've seen, especially later. But for him to be available to go at a position where I don't think there is a ton of depth, and having him be a special teamer and an emergency guy in that linebacking core and could maybe get some pass rush snaps, there's enough intrigue there to make me jump all over Carson Bruner.
I like it. I got one last question before I guess we wrap up. You got any sneaky UDFA picks?
No,
No? All right. I just figured it since you were looking at everything earlier that
it,
you might have saw some guys that you're like, oh, that'd be also a nice little cherry on top.
I think that it's up because last year I didn't watch nearly as much college football as I have in the past. I kind of just stayed centered on the Huskies. So I'm going to have a limited view on that. I do think that Cameron Fabiculan, safety from the University of Washington, played extremely well and was one of the leaders of that defense this last year. Instinctual, big pop. I think in the national title game in the first drive, JJ McCarthy put something up, and Cam Fab absolutely laid hat to break up
Dude.
to break up the pass. I like his instincts. I like
Mhm.
his tenacity at the ball. I think he's a little bit undersized to play safety because he's more of a box safety and he's not the biggest guy. He could be a big nickel for you if that's what you're shooting for, but that's kind of my where I don't think he is going to get drafted is a guy that I think could make sense for this team. Um, I could see them taking a flyer on a UDFA quarterback, but I think that quarterback with them signing Drew Lock to the 2 year deal, you still have Sam Howell on roster, which I think they'll be dangling him out to see if anyone wants to give up any picks for him at all in this year's draft. I think they'll take it, but there was a couple of positions like quarterback with this being a weaker quarterback class, signing Drew Lock to a 2 year deal, Sam Darnold 1 year guaranteed, but up to 3 years, right? So you're set at the quarterback position. You know,
Yeah,
we didn't look at center because you've got two good young options. We addressed everything else on the offensive side. We hit edge, we hit linebacker, we hit safety, we hit corner. You know, really, the only place we didn't hit was quarterbacks because I don't think that is the biggest hole on this team.
yeah.
So, um, I could see them taking a flyer on someone. I don't have a name that pops right off the top of my head just because I'm not looking at that because I do think that there are still going to be teams that reach for quarterbacks just hoping to capture something.
Mhm.
But yeah, the UDFAs I did not go that deep. And if I was, we're just going to be talking about Husky players.
Fair enough. That was a good draft. Good draft.
It's a good draft, and we will have one more final first round, but we wanted to bring you a Seahawks centric one to go in depth. And after the draft, we'll talk about Seahawks, how that all panned out for them, and what we envision for the roles for the players that were selected. But until that time, why don't you hop on over to social media and give us a little follow? You can find me, your boy, Coach Red, on X at the real Coach Red, on Instagram at the real underscore Coach Red, TikTok at the real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and leave a comment or two. Cain, where you at?
Find me over on Twitter, Cain2406, TikTok and Twitch, Cain0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Follow us, follow us, follow us. Do it, freaking do it.
And as always, stay fresh.
Stay fresh, peeps.
Peace.